Some parts of the country still face gas shortages related to the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack. The incident has drawn attention to the growing threat cyber attacks pose in the U.S. and around the world, and it has exposed potential weaknesses in the country's cybersecurity infrastructure. Last week, President Joe Biden signed an executive order aimed at strengthening cybersecurity. Joining us to talk about the increasing threat and what to do about it are Phil Andrew, a former special agent in the FBI. He's now principal of PAX Group and a professor at DePaul University. And Yan Chen, a professor of computer science at Northwestern University. Thanks to you both for joining us. Professor Chen, let's start with you, please. First, can you remind us what a ransomware attack is and what an APT attack is?
Sure, thank you. Ransomware is a type of malware that usually encrypts the computer system or the data to block users' access unless a ransom is paid. While it is at the same time, the APT attack stands for the advanced persistent threat. It uses all kinds of measures to get in the system, and after that, often a ransomware attack is launched to get the financial benefits for the attackers.
And Phil, what kind of threats do these types of attacks pose to not only to individuals, but also national security?
Are often used to target infrastructure and critical government systems. And it really depends on who's behind it. When it's a organized crime, they're often after money. And in the case of state-sponsored attacks, they're after secrets and intellectual property.
And for individuals, is there any concern that we could be asked to pay ransom?
Well, it does happen to individuals. Mostly that's around like almost a telemarketing fraud where folks are calling, locking up computers, seeking to get computer access to, and then accessing personal information, which then could be kind of at a small scale ransomed. But yes, everybody is vulnerable to it when they're not updating their systems and maintaining them at a high level of security.
Got it. And we'll come back to security, of course. Professor Chen, according to data collected by Temple University, there were at least 71 critical infrastructure ransomware attacks in 2018, 207 in 2019, and 397 in 2020. What do the growing number of attacks tell you about the future of cyber attacks?
Yeah, it's obvious that the ransomware attack, coupled with the so-called APT threat, just going to get worse and worse. In particular, with the emerging cryptocurrency, the attackers now have a fast way of getting the money, security, and anonymously. So it's just going to matter of time that we're going to see more and more such attacks, and not just to the enterprises, governments, but also to the individual users, as you just mentioned.
And Phil, what are the challenges that FBI and law enforcement face when they're trying to curb these cyber attacks? What's difficult?
Well, one is reporting that victims of these crimes, even big corporations, sometimes do not collaborate with intelligence and law enforcement agencies. One, because they're embarrassed. Two, because there could be economic harm. It'll obviously affect their marketplace. And their first order of business is usually to just get back online. And that creates its own difficulties. There isn't a coordinated effort with the government, law enforcement, and intelligence organizations with the private sector. Those have been attempted many times, and there's a renewed effort, but it really requires the private sector to fully engage and do some of the preventative work. Plus, once they're hit, to immediately integrate and cooperate with the authorities.
And Professor Chen, on that note, what can be done to address this threat? I mean, some people recommend disconnecting those systems from the internet. I would imagine some organizations might argue that might limit their abilities. And is that even enough?
Sure. So just disconnect their whole system from the internet doesn't really solve the problem. This should become obvious when there's the so-called Stunex attacks that the U.S. launched to the Iranian nuclear facilities, because that facility was cut off from the internet, but still from their insider threat the U.S. was able to still launch their attacks that disabled the Iranian nuclear facility for 3 years. That basically just to disconnect it from the internet doesn't completely solve the security problem.
What can be done what kind of security needs to be implemented?
I think that we need a holistic approach, from the government, industry, and academia to work together to improve the security and the privacy of the country. The government, that is the lawmakers, should adapt the security regulations with the emergency and defense mechanisms. We still have a lot of such, security compliance regulations nowadays, such as the PCI DSS, HIPAA, etc. But often the content a bit obsolete. We need to keep up with the evolving security landscape changes. And also the industry and academia should work closer with each other to advance the defense technology to better, secure our systems.
And Professor Chen, what can individuals do to protect themselves?
Well, as we mentioned, the individuals are not immune from this ransomware or APT attacks. So we should also be well educated to be security savvy. So to have good security habits, to always patch your system and install the personal security software to protect your home devices and systems will really benefit you and protect your home assets.
And Phil, how does this impact, the future of conflicts? Could cyber attacks like this in the future be considered attacks of war or aggression?
Well, we're certainly moving in a place where we have to decide what the threshold for an attack is that would be considered warfare. And I think we're still building some of the guidelines for that. But rest assured that state sponsors, state intelligence organizations, and defense and aggressors are watching this and learning from it and seeing what tools and what sort of social responses this gets. It's a great sort of experiment that they get to watch as these organized crime organizations use the same tools that they might be using in warfare. Cyber warfare, that is.
Okay, something that I'm certain law enforcement and cybersecurity experts like yourselves are keeping an eye on. Our thanks to both of you for joining us, Professor Yan Chen and Phil Andrew.
Thank you.